Imagine if the town of Brandon were to vanish, that its 50,000 people suddenly died. That is the size and scope of the fentanyl overdose crisis in the last 9 years of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals. A small, beautiful city like Brandon has vanished from our lives. Since 2016, 50,000 Canadians have died of overdoses to opioids, 9 in 10 of whom have died as a result of fentanyl. More Canadians have died of opioid overdoses in the last 9 years than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. They are real people: brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, friends, and thousands more are still suffering. Countless of them are in homeless encampments, living in the hell of addiction and homelessness. It wasn't like this before Liberals radically liberalized drugs. We know what they did. They passed C5 to allow traffickers to serve their sentences in their living rooms. They eliminated mandatory prison time. They opened up our ports and our borders. 99% of the shipping containers that enter our country, 99% of those shipping containers come in without any inspection at all.
Morning, Luca. Morning, Rhonda.
After 9 years of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals. Super labs in Canada synthesize using precursor chemical ingredients that come into Canada from China and Mexico through our open border policy. But it's not happening. This is something that looks like an episode of Breaking Bad. But this is not happening in New Mexico in a TV drama. It is happening here in Canada, real life, right now. In November of 2024, police dismantled what they described as the largest, most sophisticated illicit drug super lab in the country in Falkland, British Columbia. One of the accused was out of jail after earlier convictions. Police said they seized 54 kilograms of fentanyl. Now, that might not seem like a lot until you realize that it just takes 2 milligrams to kill a human being. That means there was enough finished fentanyl to kill 27 million people. Police found enough ingredients to make enough fentanyl to kill 95 million people. That's twice the population of Canada. Police also found 390 kilograms of methamphetamine, small explosives, ammunition, silencers, high-capacity magazines, body armor, $500,000 in cash, and 89 firearms, many of which were, quote, loaded and ready to be used. Days earlier, police discovered a super lab in Langley, BC, that they say was capable of producing multiple kilograms of fentanyl on a weekly basis. A Government of Canada report confirmed.
It's like some Breaking Bad stuff right there.
And I quote, seizures of Canada-sourced fentanyl in places like the U.S. and Australia suggest that the domestic production of fentanyl is likely exceeding the domestic demand, and that Canada is now a source and transit country for fentanyl to some markets. The number of seizures of fentanyl at the Canada-U.S. border more than tripled between 2023 and 2024, rising from 239,000 doses to 839 doses. How did this happen? Well, the Carney-Trudeau Liberals happened. They legalized fentanyl possession here in British Columbia in partnership with the local radical NDP BC government. They passed C5, which eliminated mandatory jail time and brought in house arrest, allowing fentanyl dealers to do their time in their living room while watching Netflix or playing Grand Theft Auto.
I love he's painted this picture of criminals playing GTA on the couch while serving time under house arrest. Like, he's not wrong, though. Like, they're getting off a little too easy, in my opinion, as well.
Falkland Super Lab that police discovered had ties to transnational criminal networks that span Mexico all the way to China. They are killing our people and many more in other countries, which is now endangering the trade with our closest ally. President Trump has threatened to tariff Canada because of what he says is lethal drug flows. But whether or not we agree with him should not matter. It should not take a foreign leader to get the Liberals to wake up to the drug crisis that they have caused here at home. It should have been enough that we lost 50,000 of our people. We should crack down on drugs, not to please President Trump, but to ensure that not one more mother has to bury her face in her hands on learning that her son died of an overdose in a back alley somewhere.
Honestly, I feel like if you live in BC of all places too, chances are you know someone or are related to someone who's been a victim of the opioid crisis. I myself, like I was talking to Saul one time and we couldn't count, like we need more hands to count all the people we know who have been dramatically affected, or they're not the same anymore, or they're just dead. Like there's so many just growing up in the, you know, the Vancouver area in BC that we know of. It's just, it's honestly pretty crazy when you think about it.
Stop drugs to save our people and put Canada first. It starts with locking up mass traffickers and manufacturers of this poison with penalties that fit the crime. But what is that crime? Let's call fentanyl trafficking what it is. Mass murder. Selling 40 milligrams of this poison is enough to kill 20 people. It's like spraying bullets into a crowd. You might not know who you're killing, but it's certain someone will die.
I'm not laughing at Pierre here. I'm laughing at the chat here.
That's why I'm denouncing today, as part of my Canada First plan, that common sense conservatives will bring mandatory prison sentences. There will be life sentences for anyone caught trafficking, producing, or exporting over 40 milligrams of fentanyl. 40 milligrams is enough to kill 20 people.
Luca in the chat, do 911 calls count? Can't tell you how many get dispatched for that. Yeah, it's wild. And that's what I was talking about, these safe injection sites. I think they've like overall reduced 911 calls, but I don't know if they've actually reduced official overdoses or if they're just able to deal with it on hand now, like what the difference is. I wish they were keeping track of those numbers, but it doesn't seem like they are, especially in the Vancouver area. Justin in the chat, or Justin, just lost my brother-in-law 4 months ago to this problem. Yeah, it's wild, dude. Like I know like a huge chunk of the people I hung out with in high school, like 5 or 6 of them, and then there's people I grew up with. You know, just it's just crazy how many people were affected by this. And I have relatives too who are just, they're never going to be the same. They're just completely gone, unfortunately. Even if they recover, like they're never going to be who they were before the addiction. And that's what's so messed up about fentanyl and this whole crisis is like it's permanently like even if you're still there, it's almost like coming back from wartime. You're like a vegetable, you know what I mean? Like you're a PTSD victim who's basically got shell shock so bad they can't function properly. That's almost like what this is. It's got like a wartime effect on the people, I think.
Anyone who is involved in trafficking that amount of fentanyl will get a life sentence. We will lock them up and we will throw away the key. And 15 years for traffickers caught with between 20 milligrams and 40 milligrams will be the new mandatory sentence. The people we will lock away are not non-violent addicts. They are the victims. We will come to the rescue of victims and addicts. We will provide life-saving treatment. My message to anyone struggling with addiction today is have hope, hang on, help is on the way. My government will provide residential treatment.
Morning, Autumn.
We'll take people off the streets, provide them with detox, recovery, counseling, group therapy, sweat lodges for First Nations victims, and help them get into housing, a job, and back to their families. We will bring our loved ones home drug-free. Nor are we talking about the small-time dealer on a street corner, though he too will be punished. Rather, my law will go after the fentanyl kingpins who kill thousands of people each year. We will treat them like the mass murderers they are. We will bring home the country we knew and loved. After 9 years of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals, everything is broken.
You know, just to throw Carney in there now. They are worried about Carney. Don't get me wrong. Like, you know, they see Carney as their biggest threat in this upcoming election for sure. Northwest Coast in the chat. My brother became addicted through opioid prescription. Luckily, his wife was a nurse and had a family come to the rescue to help detox. Well, that's awesome that he was able to get out of it and hopefully is the same person he was before. Because, you know, I think there is a point of return for sure, but there is this, like, I feel like you get to a point where they've had so many overdoses in situations where they just have like no oxygen to their brain that they've essentially got like horrible brain damage, right? Like that's happened to someone I knew. So that because he had so many overdoses, he suffered permanent brain damage, right? And now he's like just not there quite at all. And it's kind of scary because, like, yeah, I didn't even, you know, I just ran into him one time with my wife and we were like, hadn't seen him in years. And I was just like, what the hell happened? Like, you know, I had seen him when he was just getting into this stuff when we were like younger. And I remember like being like, oh yeah, you guys are all nuts. I'm gonna leave. You know, I just stopped hanging out with that whole group of friends because, yeah, a lot of them just started getting into drugs. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And like, it was weird because we weren't like, you know, rough, coming from rough backgrounds. Like some of us came from pretty, like one of my friends was in a medical school program. You know what I mean? Like we weren't like your average hoodlums. Like we're all pretty average kids. Maybe one or two of us had a bit of a, you know, rough upbringing, but like most of us were pretty normal. You know what I mean? Like we're just kind of like you ever watch that show, The In-Betweeners? Like that kind of reminds me of me and my friends when we were younger. So it's just wild, right? It's just wild that it affected everybody. It doesn't matter what family you come from. Doesn't matter. Oh, maybe you had a rough. Like it just happens to people, right? It's just a horrible thing that plagues like, you know, even back to the opium dens. Like this has been a problem in society for a long time. It's just now we're seeing this like super level steroid superhuman drugs that are just destroying people like crazy.
Costs have doubled. Food bank use has doubled. Gun crime has doubled. The national debt has doubled. All of this because Justin Trudeau was implementing the radical policies of carbon tax carny. These policies have destroyed our working class, and now he threatens an even bigger carbon tax after a brief election pause, a tax that will drive hundreds of billions of dollars out of our country and continue the rising cost of living that the Carney Liberals have imposed over the last 9 years. The good news is, life was not like this before the Carney Trudeau Liberals, and it won't be like this after they're gone. We're going to bring home the country we knew and loved. We're going to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Most of all, we are going to put our country first. This will be a country where hard work pays off, where anyone from anywhere can do anything. That was the Canadian promise, and my purpose is to bring it home. Let's make this a country where anybody who works hard gets a powerful paycheck and pension that buys affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods wrapped around the protective arms of strong borders under a proud flag for a united country, Canada. Let's bring it home.
Thank you.
And I'd like to acknowledge we have here Jesse Sahota. I said it in French already. Jesse is a police officer who has fought fentanyl and crime his whole life, a wrestling coach, and a jiu-jitsu black belt. We call him the Gentle Giant. But he
He's just like a super cop? Guy's got like multiple black belts. He's like 6'5". What? This is like the head of their drug task force. This guy looks like a warrior. Jeez. Look how tall he is. He's standing on the ground off the stage. Look how tall he is. Like he's at like Poilievre's waist when Poilievre's on the stage. That's crazy.
We have Member of Parliament for Delta after the next election. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take questions from the floor, starting with the breaker.
Hi, Bob Mackin with the Breaker.News. Good morning. You're here at the port, and you referenced 99% of containers do not get checked. And you've got your candidate here who is a police officer himself. There have been reports recently, one by Peter German, former head of the RCMP for Western Canada, who recommends restoring ports police to ports here on the West Coast and also East Coast. And the ports police used to have headquarters very close to here. The Chrétien Liberals shut it down. Will you bring back the ports police as the Canada Ports Police, or will you open up RCP detachments at ports? And also wanted to get your comment on what's going on with your nomination race in Steveston Richmond East, where Y. Young issued a statement last week downplaying the Hogue Commission report and blaming Kenny Chiu, the former MP there, who's also seeking the nomination, blaming him for causing rift in the community. He's fired back and says that she's lying about the contents of the Hogue Commission report, which actually did
Yeah, and that's not the only claim. There's a lot of people claiming Hogue is lying.
find that Chinese government actors did target the Conservatives in 2021.
But I don't know for sure, right? Like we don't want to get lost in the chaos of it all, but like let's just kind of like, you know, keep an open mind and keep an eye on things. That's all I'm saying.
So first of all, obviously Conservatives have been victims of foreign interference. It's clear that Beijing wanted to keep Justin Trudeau in power. I have no doubt that they'll want Mark Carney to stay in power. Mark Carney has a background of shipping investment
and you know, when he says this stuff, that, you know, that doesn't imply there's somehow assets to that nation. It's more of just like, you know, their policies, you know, China will find more favorable over mine. That's basically what he's saying, right?
China and favoring foreign economies over the Canadian economy. We need a prime minister who will put Canada first. On the question of ports, you're quite right. Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney and the Liberals have destroyed our border security and our ports. After 9 years of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals, our ports are allowing 99% of shipping containers to enter our country with no inspection. And that's where the drug ingredients, the guns, the stolen cars come into our country or leave to support massive crime networks. I announced that I will eliminate 2,000 bureaucrats and replace them.
Yeah, no, I watched Moose's video. I thought he did a good job. I like Moose on the Loose. I've been following Moose on the Loose since he had like 20,000 subscribers. Like Moose on the Loose is one of the few Canadian content creators for politics I actually always liked. I always found him like kind of witty, you know, and a little drier, so more of my taste for sure. But yeah, when he broke it down, I thought it was good video. Like I said, I'm keeping an open mind, keeping an eye on it, but until I haven't made my formal, like, I'm not going to place any bets yet. That's all I'm saying.
With 2,000 extra CBSA agents who will have the power to surveil our entire border. They will also have the ability to use new high-tech scanners that can peer right through the metal walls of shipping containers to spot drugs, guns, and stolen cars. We will also expand our border security across the entire border with surveillance towers, drones, helicopters. I've said the military should immediately go to the borders to block fentanyl traffickers and other lawbreakers. The radical Trudeau-Carney experiment with open borders and post-national globalism has not only divided and weakened our country's sense of identity, it has endangered our people. When I'm Prime Minister, that radical, borderless, globalist ideology pushed by the Trudeau-Carney Liberals will end, and we will have a Prime Minister that seals the border, protects our people, and puts Canada first.
En français.
Yeah, no, I've seen Northern Perspective's video as well. I watched it off stream. Like I said, I thought it was all great. Like, I think it's like there's a real case here, but I just don't think anyone's ready to be convicted yet, so to speak, right? I think we just got to see how things unfold. I really hope it triggers a formal additional investigation because at this point, I think there's definitely a lot of questions that need to be answered for people to have more faith in Hogue's report there.
Merci beaucoup. C'est clair que les conservateurs ont été des victimes de l'ingérence de l'étranger. Le gouvernement à Pékin a favorisé les libéraux pour deux
Standard.
Hi.
Canada d'abord. Merci.
Thank you. The next question.
You can tell he's sick.
Standard.
Getting over a sickness.
Hi, Jared Yeager from the Western Standard. So the Liberals now appear to be taking the fentanyl trafficking more seriously with the announcement of a fentanyl czar. Do you think this move is purely performative, or do you think it'll actually have an impact? Also, do you think your plan will have support across the aisle?
Thank you for your question. Of course it's performative. The Liberals would like you to believe that they now agree with Pierre Poilievre and the common sense Conservatives on everything. You know, why is it that right before the election they suddenly changed their mind? Well, because they're trying to, these lying Liberals are trying to trick Canadians into giving them a fourth term. They're not going to change. The only way you'll get a change is by electing a common sense conservative government that will put Canada first. I have been against the carbon tax all along. I've been against the capital gains tax increase all along. I've been against fentanyl and in favor of tough penalties and strong borders all along. The Liberals will try to trick you to think that into thinking that they now agree with Pierre Poilievre on everything. There is only one common sense conservative government. There is only one common sense Canada First party that can change the country. And I am the leader of that party. I will be the one to stop the fentanyl and bring home the country that we knew and love.
En français.
Les libéraux essaient de vous convaincre qu'ils sont.
Kingpin dealers proposed
Thank you. The next question will be from the Globe and Mail.
Globe and Mail.
on the proposed legislation for life for kingpin dealers. What is your strategy for the notwithstanding clause? To use it at all? To use it
Say life for kingpin dealers?
preemptively? To see it play out through the courts?
What I am proposing today is not only allowed under the Charter, it is required by the Charter. Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees life, liberty, and security of the person. 50,000 people had their Section 7 right to life violated by the open borders, soft on crime, legal drugs policy of the Liberals. I will protect the charter rights of Canadians and their right to life, liberty, and the security of the person by locking up the mass murderers that bring these drugs in. This penalty that I propose is proportionate to the crime. If you kill dozens of people, you should go away for life. And that is what we will do.
Yeah. Like, why is that a crazy thing? Why is it so crazy these days?
I will lock up these fentanyl murderers and we will throw away the key. And I will do it not just to save lives, but to uphold the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
And I think that's a great angle to take, just to be like, yeah, it's not about, infringing on their freedoms. It's about how they're all infringing on everybody else's freedoms, right? And this is where the freedom of speech argument comes in about inciting violence and everything. It's about that line is once your rights infringe on others' rights, then you're no longer in the right, right?
Français.
But would you use 33 to insulate the law so it doesn't get bat down in court?
Oh, it won't. No, well, because the judge...
Kane in the chat, one of our members, does he know that murder is a specific crime with specific conditions? I don't know. You want to elaborate a little bit, Kane? Good morning, by the way.
are going to be obliged by Section 7. It's
Northwest Coast, who's been kind of disagreeing with Poilievre as we gone along here. Him saying, my argument is it's just not as easy as he proposes. And I understand what you're saying, but I think he just has a plain way of communicating. And I think he knows it's not that simple. And I think he's just trying to communicate it this way to the people is how I take it. Take with it what you will. If you want to think maybe I'm a little bit, making excuses for him here. However, I don't think I am, just based off what I've seen from following Poilievre now for almost 2 years. That's just what I would put my money on. He's planning on doing.
Clear that people have the right to life, liberty, and security of the person. So what I'm proposing is necessary to uphold the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And you do not have the right to go out and kill 20 or 30 people by spreading poison in the community. That is not a charter right. So the Liberals believe that mass fentanyl murderers who have taken 50,000 lives have the right to go free on the streets. That is how they interpret the Charter. Here's how I interpret the Charter. That law-abiding people have the right to expect that their children will not die in back alleys. That's the Charter right I will uphold. Next question.
En français.
Section 7 is the section in question. Merci pour la question.
Oh, I see what you're saying to him saying about that. Yeah, you're right. But I guess if you had intent, I guess you'd have to prove the intent that they knew it was contaminated, I guess. I guess that's a good point, is how would you prove the intent in that situation? Because, the intent is a huge part in our law system.
No.
I just know that from Law 12, honestly. I'm not a lawyer either, so take my opinion with what you will.
La proposition de peine à vie pour des trafiquants de mettre les familles canadiennes en action.
Of course, today, Canada, Parliament.
This will be the final question from True North.
True North here.
You've argued that Parliament should be recalled to address the tariff threat facing Canada, which is related to the fentanyl crisis that you've spoken about earlier today. But however, you're also calling for an election. Of course, dissolving Parliament would be required to have an election. How can we have both of these views simultaneously? And given the urgency of the situation and the looming tariff threats, would having an election and dissolving Parliament be a responsible or wise course of action at this time?
It would be not only responsible, it is the only responsible course of action. We have a Liberal government that has totally lost control of everything. The Trudeau Carney government has lost control of spending, having doubled the debt, lost control of crime, having seen gun crime rise by 116%. They've lost control of the borders with thousands of illegal migrants, drugs, guns pouring in over our borders and threatening our people. They've lost control of the cost of living with rising taxes and a doubling of housing costs. And they have lost control of our national sovereignty by blocking pipelines, mines, LNG plants. The Carney-Trudeau Liberals have made us hopelessly dependent on the Americans. They've handed over our economic sovereignty to President Trump, who spots weakness. And now, what is a real estate mogul from the fiercest economic jungle in the world, New York City? What does he do when he spots weakness? He pounces. He pounces on the weakness that Carney-Trudeau Liberals have caused in this country. We cannot allow this weakness to continue. We need an axe the tax election to elect a new common sense conservative government that will secure our borders, stop the drugs, lock up the criminals, axe taxes, approve and greenlight massive resource projects, cut the bureaucracy, and bring home Canada's promise. And that promise is very simple. It is my purpose in politics. It is to make it so that anyone from anywhere can do anything, that hard work earns a powerful paycheck and pension, that buys affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods within the protective arms of a strong border under a proud Canadian flag. Let's bring it home.
En français.